Hey everyone, we are so excited to the reaction in the community for the pod. I need to take a moment of your time to tell you to please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or hit the follow button on Spotify. We are in the humble beginning stage of our show and establishing a listener base is of paramount importance and will help us determine the frequency of future episodes. Thanks and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theater and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. Now, as we record this, our 46th season is still on hiatus. There'll be some new information about that soon. And we know you're chomping at the bit to know what's going on. But don't worry. In the meantime, we have a guest here today to help fill that theatrical void that we still have in our small community. And he has been started out with Neuse Little Theater and did a bunch of stuff during the 90s. And this is the first time I've met this gentleman today. And I'm going to hand it over to Chris Johnson. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Matt, it's absolutely a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this exciting podcast. I listen to it weekly as y'all upload it, and I laugh, I reminisce. I think about a lot of the things that a lot of your former guests talk about. Either I was involved in it or I can see them doing it. So, it's one of those things. It's really kind of a close-knit family, and you can't laugh about mama, but nobody else can laugh about mama, but I can type thing. So it makes it all worthwhile.
It's funny that you say that. There's a lot of stuff like that with local theaters and stuff like that. Like, hey, you can't talk about them like the way I talk about them. You're not from there.
That's right.
So yeah, there's a lot of protectiveness when it comes to that type of stuff. How'd you first get? Did you grow up in Smithfield, sir?
I did not. Pretty much like half of Johnston County, or the remaining, 2/3 of it, actually grew up somewhere else. Northampton County is what I refer to as home. Met my wife at East Carolina, she's originally from Smithfield, and I took her home for the weekend to meet my folks, and she says, "Sweetheart, I love you, but if we're getting married, we're sure as heck not going to live here in Jackson." So anyway, we ended up, I was working in Raleigh at the time after graduation. I have family in Fuquay, Varina, and it's just a natural fit. So I've been here since 1990 and seen Johnston County grow and been a part of exciting transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Now, how did you first start out with Neuse Little Theater?
Well, it was something actually I kind of fell into. I've always liked to perform and been in, I don't want to say I have an extensive background in chorus or anything like that, but, singing in church plays and productions and things of that nature, and was in a couple of plays in junior high and high school, and actually did an outdoor drama in Halifax called First for Freedom, and then also we did The Sound of Music. I was Friedrich. I was a 6'1", 14-year-old kid. I was bigger than anybody else, but anyway, it was the only one that they chose me for, and I guess they had already selected whatever the romance. I can't think of the character, but anyway. But I just have always enjoyed it. But I was active in athletics. I kind of enjoyed trying a little bit of everything, and it's something that kind of the way I was raised, of just seeing if you enjoy it and try it, and if you do, then go for it. So I didn't do anything in college, and then in the 90s, my wife and I got married in 1990, moved here to Smithfield. But really was introduced to the Neuse Little Theater when I saw a flyer or saw something that said they were having tryouts for the Wizard of Oz, And that was something that was I always connected with that. I mean, from a toddler, watching it on TV. Actually, I saw it on the big screen, kind of the repeats and stuff. But, I was always kind of connected with that, and actually, I felt like a connection with the Scarecrow. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, I was selected for that, which I was very honored. And so I owe my Neuse Little Theater career, I should say, to Ruth, because
a lot of us do.
Yeah, well, Ruth, there for a while in the late, that was in '99 when we did the
it was 99.
when we did the Wizard of Oz, and my son at the time was about 3 or 4 years old. He knew the whole cast. He knew all the lines. My wife was pregnant at the time with my daughter, and it was just amazing because it's people even come up today, and it's been 22 years, saying, I remember when you did the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz. And one, we had just had a huge production and a huge team, because you had 50 or 60 kids being involved in this. So you've got kids now that are probably in their 30s.
Yeah, and that was at JCC.
That was out at JCC, and we only did like 2 or 3 nights. It was something we couldn't afford. There was some type of things. Meta, what was we couldn't afford the?
Well, because it's a musical, it's more expensive, and a musical. And with a musical, you pay per seat, and there's 1,000 seats at the college, which means even if we didn't put bodies in those seats, we still had to pay for 1,000 seats for every night. And I think we did dress rehearsal on Wednesday night, and we actually did a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday. So we did 4 real performances, but we actually had people come on Wednesday night too. We filled that auditorium every night.
Yeah.
It was huge. There were 80 people in the production, if I remember correctly. And I have never seen so many little girls in gingham dresses and red shoes.
Yeah.
What did you do on it, Mita?
I did nothing.
I mean, there was a lot. Well, first of all, when you've got 60 kids or 60 munchkins, I mean, just kind of corralling those kids, it took an army behind stage. Yeah. And but you would not believe. I mean, it was really. It was. I can't help but say it was an honor, because kids even today, and parents, you just, and grown adults now, I was a munchkin, and and whatever, and so it was really an honor, and and I was fortunate to win a cannon with that. I had no idea what a cannon was. I knew, I mean, I knew Doris.
A lot of people don't.
I knew Doris, but I didn't know anything about a cannon. But Sammy Smith was the lion.
Who was the Tin Man?
Greg Honeycutt.
Yeah.
Was
a great singer.
Yeah, very good baritone. I mean, he was a phenomenal singer.
So we had Mary Lee as Dorothy, and Nancy as Glenda.
Glenda, and she never got her bubble. She's still very bitter about that.
Maybe one day she'll get her chance.
Reggie was the wizard.
Wizard.
And I'm trying to think of the Hamilton. That was the
Lori.
Wicked. Lori Hamilton was the Wicked Witch.
That'd be Mary Lee's aunt, actually, as it turns out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that was Mary Lee's aunt.
Okay.
So.
Well, what was the rehearsal process like for?
A blast. I mean, it really was, because I mean, it's something that you've seen it on TV enough. Ruth really wanted. She didn't. I mean, obviously you can't deviate too much from the characters, but Ruth kind of wants us to make it our own. Mm-hmm. I remember working with someone about. How does a scarecrow walk? And I remember being at my wife's store, and for the life of me, I can't think of who helped out. But I mean, just the dancing. Darius would have hated every minute of it, because there was a lot of dancing, or at least with that I did. We did. There was a lot of things that we did that's not in the movie, like the song "The Jitterbug." And so which the band absolutely loved, and
Jitterbug is fun. I saw a stage production a couple years ago, and I'm just like, I do not remember this in the movie at all, but it's
No,
fun.
they cut it out of the movie because they thought it dated the movie.
Yeah.
It actually was filmed, apparently, but they cut it out of the final release of the movie because they felt it dated the
Yeah.
movie. 'Cause-
So, but anyway,
I'm trying to imagine the producers and directors in the 1939 going, "This is dated."
Yeah.
well, they knew the jitterbug wasn't always going to be a popular dance, so they went, let's cut that out.
Well,
I guess they were right. I mean, who am I to argue with them?
If I remember correctly, you had 3 rehearsals going on at a time. It's like Ruth was still teaching at the high school.
right.
And they were here, and then we had a dance studio. So like dance was going in one place, acting was going here, and singing was out at the high school or something like that. So there were 3 rehearsals. Nancy will tell you, she has never been so happy as when they got to tech rehearsals, because it was the first time she saw another adult. Because she was always with the Munchkins and with Dorothy. Everybody she worked with was under the age of like 15, and she's like, I'm so glad to be
Yeah.
with adults.
Yeah, and Mary Lee was homeschooled at the time. I remembered that. And so she was able to, I mean, her and her mom were able to get out during the day when everybody was working or doing something. So there was she did a lot of rehearsal, I guess, with the kids right after school. And with, so she really kind of put in a lot.
Yeah.
Because we practiced here. We practiced at the high school theater there. I remember everybody kind of getting in the gym and going through that. Ray Belinsky played the guard.
Guard, yeah.
And anyway, it was just a whole host of entertainment.
So, what was the most difficult scene in your guys' opinion to pull off on Wizard of Oz?
There at the end, when Reggie was leaving on the balloon, we were all in character. I mean, we were all dressed up, particularly Greg. And I think Sammy left, and then
'cause Greg was in
and
full
yeah, so
silver
you're in full
makeup.
silver and everything. And my mother made my costume, and we had, I mean, it was, listen, I think everybody was proud of their costumes because, I mean, it really was not something just kind of thrown together. I mean, we really took pride in that. And so the transition of Reggie leaving, Dorothy waking up, and then, because then the farmhands have to come back in at the end. And so basically we've just a mad dash to undress, get back into our farm outfit, take off whatever makeup that we had, and get back out.
That was a very quick turnaround for you guys.
Yeah,
you had very little time to change.
Because you're
Right.
changing back into the characters from the farm.
The farm.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was hot.
My favorite story is I'm pretty sure it was the matinee, but after the show, all the characters would come out to the lobby, and because there were so many people in the show, we didn't have a proper program. So pictures were on the wall and bios were up, and they had these partitions down the center of the lobby, so it was sort of cut in half. And all the actors came out in character. So like the farmhands, you guys didn't change back, did you?
No, we didn't change. We
Okay.
came back as farmhands,
Okay.
and that was a little disappointing for the little kids because they wanted to see, Yeah.
So they came out. Lori came out as the Wicked Witch, and Mary Lee came out as Dorothy, and I think Nancy stayed as Glinda. Well, Dad was out there as Uncle Henry because he played Uncle Henry.
In
this-
just his regular clothes, right?
Pretty much.
Whatever was in Fred's closet, right?
He's wearing his normal overalls and a straw hat. But he comes out and he's standing there, and I'm just standing there talking to him because I've got nothing better to do. And I'm watching Munchkins run around in the lobby, and people chasing each other and little kids running around. And this little girl comes up, and she's dressed. She's got ruby slippers on. She has a gingham dress. She's got her hair in pigtails. She's carrying a basket and a little stuffed dog in it. And she comes up and tugs my dad's sleeve, and her mom's with her. And she tugs, and Dad goes, "Hey, sweetheart, what's the matter?" Her mom goes, "Uncle Henry, can we talk to you on the other side of the partitions?" And my dad goes, sure. So they walked around to the other side, the non-busy side. And she said, "She really wants your autograph, but the Wicked Witch is over there." And so they had to hide from the Wicked Witch to get my dad's autograph. It's amazing how many little girls were in that audience and all dressed up. It was pretty impressive.
And you know, and talking about autographs, I mean, it was real to them. I mean, you know, the little kids and wanting their picture taken with you and stuff like that.
You believe it. You believe it.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was like seeing your idol. You know, I can understand why that would happen. You know, if I was a child like that. So,
Right.
and I'm trying to think. We had who did the paintings? I just remember. Goodness, I mean, it was literally the whole entire town almost. Somebody was involved with that. But anyway, that is kind of what got me involved, and Ruth had me hooked. So every time that she called me up and said, "Chris, I'm directing this," there was almost that sense of loyalty since she got me involved. So
You're also you're a young dude who can sing. So at the time, you know what I mean. I don't know how old you are now, but you don't seem very old. But you were young at the time and could sing, so you could do very well in community theater.
yeah, but I much rather do musicals as opposed to we did right after that. I don't know. I think it may have been the next year we did Born on the 4th of July, and that was
Born Yesterday.
Born Yesterday.
Born on the 4th of July is the Tom Cruise
That's right,
Oliver
I'm sorry. Born Yesterday.
Oh my God! You guys did that?
Yeah. No, because that's the first time I met Steven. If I'm not. He was the boot jack or something like that, wasn't he?
What was very funny is I did not remember Steven from that show. I was in that show. I had no lines, and I came on and
you were like the maid or something.
I was the maid. I had no lines. I tell people to this day, I joke about, I remember all my lines from that show because I had none. I came on, picked something off, and left. That was my whole part. I don't know why somebody else couldn't have done it.
It must have been something vital.
It was crucial. And but we were joking, and when Steven came back finally, Nancy said, "Oh, that's that creepy guy that was in Born Yesterday with us." I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You know, the one that sat in the back and didn't talk to anybody." Well, Richard, his dad, Richard Roberts, was in the show as the barber.
Right.
And they just needed somebody to be a boot black and shine shoes and not have any lines and just sit there and do that. And Richard goes, "I got a kid, he'll do it."
I'll just bring my son Steven.
And Steven was pissed.
Yeah.
He didn't want to do it, but his dad asked him to do it. So he sat there and moped the whole time. And so I went back. I said, "No, Steven wasn't in that because his first show was Sunshine Boys with us." And I went back and looked at the cast photos. Like, nope, there's Steven right there in the back row.
Just sitting in the back moping.
But anyway, so we did that one. I don't say I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I just connect better to musicals as opposed to.
So
something.
what you're saying is you tried out the play and you decided you like to do musicals better.
Well, yeah, exactly. But Ruth hooked me into it because I cannot remember lines to save my life. I mean, I'm very I got to be moved. I mean, I just can't sit there and remember a line. I've got to associate it with doing something, and so I just
Muscle memory, very important for you. I guess.
Well, and I guess that's why I did so well with the Scarecrow, because I was always, just kind of moving around, and I'd kind of have my little rhythms and quirks and things, and so and it works for me. So that's all that matters.
Well, and there's a difference between a character part like the Scarecrow or like some of your others, but and in a quote unquote serious role. I mean, Born Yesterday is a comedy, but he was the love interest that the reporter that comes in.
Yeah, I was Don. I remember I was Don Johnson's role. So yeah, but
which is actually a remake of the earlier movie.
Right. So, but anyway, so that we did that one, and then the next one that I was involved in was Smokey Joe's Cafe, and loved that.
Very
Absolutely
successful show.
Loved it, and I mean it was the band. And it was just us, and we had some risers, but it was not that. It didn't have a lot of backdrops and stuff. And it had some.
I think we had 4 rolling flats that we kind of moved on stage a little bit, and the risers that got moved off after intermission, and the band was in the back behind a scrim, and that was it. It was a very simple show, but it was about the music. That's what it was about.
And
how large was the cast?
8 or 10.
Something like that,
Darius was on it. Adam
I think it
Hand
was
was.
5 men and 5 women.
Robbie was on it.
Sammy.
Sammy. Fred did a couple of. He was in it. But he only did like one song. But then he kind of whenever
He
we
was
did
part
like
of
a
the
group
group, yeah.
group sing.
Smokey Joe's Cafe is basically a musical that has the 1950s doo-wop songs and stuff
It's,
like that.
the songs of Lieber and Stoller.
Yeah.
And so it's 1950s and 60s. So you'll know every song in it. It's like Hound Dog and Poison Ivy.
Yeah. Buy me a ticket, gonna ride on that B&O.
There were a couple of more obscure songs, but pretty much every song that was in it was something you knew. And they were like the original version. So like Hound Dog was not the Elvis version, it was the original version.
Yeah.
And which threw Chris off.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I hate to say that. That's a whole different story about Elvis and what I mean. It's like, okay, I'm a baritone. I've got black hair.
So you wanted to try it as Elvis, but you missed.
Well, no, I did it as Elvis. I mean, it's like Ruth said, do it whatever you want to. So anyway, so we kind of did it, and then I'd watched the Broadway production, so it was kind of Broadway plus Chris plus a little Elvis, and we had a blast doing that. If I could redo one show, it would probably be that one. We had fun. Darius hated it. Because we had to dance. I mean, there were some steps that we had to do.
They had on Broadway, so it was what's the band or what's the singing group?
Like the Four Tops or the Temptations
something like
or something.
that. So they had to do that sort of style dancing, that in sync movement, and so it was pretty precise. It needs to be pretty precise because most people know that's the movements of those doo-wop groups or whatever.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure Darius complained the entire time.
Well, he does not sound like the Darius I know.
Well, he for some reason during that stretch he was battling. He was having vertigo.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember he nearly fell off the stage here. All of a sudden we're up there singing, and then there goes Darius. I mean, he starts leaning forward, and I'm like, goodness gracious. And so. Anyway, but that was a fun show.
And it was the energy was good. Mm-hmm. If you want to go with a show that it seems like everybody was really into it and really enjoyed it, that's one of those shows because the first part is pretty high energy and the faster songs, and then it sort of slows down for the second half, but because then it goes to like the cafe and everybody's kind of, but everybody really seemed, you could tell everybody was having a good time. Yeah. Everybody was enjoying what they were doing.
Yeah. So that's another Ruth time, and then the other ones were the songs by Irving Berlin, and thoroughly enjoyed that.
Melody lingers on.
Yeah, and what was touching is obviously it's kind of the 30s, the 40s, and having some a lot of people in the audience that kind of grew up on that, because this again was 20 years ago, if not maybe not that long, but it was during the like 2002, 2003 time period when we did that, maybe a little bit later. I mean, you see people and you're out there singing, and you look in the audience and there's ladies with their eyes closed singing with you. I mean, it's one of those things that they've connected something, maybe their childhood or some type of event that happened in their life. And Darius, I just remember him singing Blue Skies, Blue Skies shining on me, and just the connection with the audience. And I mean, you could just see there was a lot of interaction, and that was special.
What is your favorite song you've ever performed for NLT in any show? What's your favorite song?
Oh, goodness gracious! Now you've it would have to be something from Smokey Joe's Cafe. And I hate to I jokingly say I hate being typecast as Elvis, because growing up I was not an Elvis fan at all. I mean, it's not like I didn't like it. It's just I just didn't like. I mean,
you were more of a Beatles fan?
No, actually, I grew up in Northampton County. I was more than the funk and this R&B
Okay, so
type stuff.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth. I've seen them 18 times. I mean, so yeah. I mean that, and I mean my father was Little Richard. I mean, that type of stuff. But that's not funk. But
Yeah.
That's what I listened to in the '70s, and then Clarence Carter. Junior Walker and the All Stars, all that stuff was what I was raised on, and so I just never really. I mean, I knew Elvis, but how I got into
What was
that,
he like?
Well, how it happened was, my mother was involved in an organization that they did. She was responsible for a talent show. She had to do the entertainment, and so they did an Ed Sullivan theater type event, and I'd gotten out of college. My brother was still in college, and she says, "Look, guys, we're having this statewide conference. It's up in Appalachian, up in Boone. I need y'all to come up there and do some songs for me." And of course, how can you not say anything to your mother? She says, "Okay, we're doing an Ed Sullivan variety show. We want y'all to do the Righteous Brothers." And my brother and I had done that on several occasions.
You said the Righteous Brothers?
The Righteous
Oh,
Brothers,
okay,
yeah. So we've done You Lost That Loving Feeling, and a couple of other things. And I've done Nat King Cole, and a lot of that type of music. And she says, "Chris, I want you to do Elvis." I'm like, "Elvis? Why?" Yeah, she says, "I'll make you a suit." So she makes me a suit with a cape. I mean, and the 6-inch collars that stand up. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, and I still have that thing, and I've done it. And everybody, I mean, people wanted me to do during the 90s into 2000s. People would ask me, would I come to their house and how much do I charge to do this? I'm like, look, I am not getting into being this.
You could have made money.
Elvis impersonator. I mean, but I'm proud to say the suit still fits after 20 some odd years. Just getting out in the audience, it makes it, kind of interacting with, and it kind of goes back to the songs of Irving Berlin, and anytime that you can connect and truly connect with the audience that way, as opposed to, oh, good job, in standing up, you can really, it makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, it does. Yeah, that it truly does. And I totally agree with you about that. Anytime you can make any type of connection with the audience, be it through singing, acting, or dancing, or anything really, even a look, is very truly special, and that's where it all becomes worthwhile. Well, let's transition into talking about your work with the Downtown Smithfield Development Corporation. It seems like there's been a lot of interesting transitions over the years, and you're involved with that, as I understand it. We want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I was. And that kind of, again, another connection with the theater is my wife and I have owned a retail store in downtown Smithfield this will be our 30th
What is
year.
it?
Jules Formals,
Oh, okay. Right
downtown. And probably half of the shoes and half of the costumes downtown kind of came through Jules at one time. And so I would call up Mito and say, well, I've got this contraption here. Do you want it? Well, send me a photograph. Yeah, we'll take it. No, we'll not. And so anyway, we've donated tuxedos for various productions for whatever may be going on here at the theater, or trying to support them in that.
That's where I got my tux for prom.
Well, appreciate it. So thank you very much. For 14 years I was the director for Downtown Smithfield Development, and really did what I could to promote the theater as a part of my job, and the activities and everything going on, trying to pull the theater into certain things. I remember we were trying to get the whatever cast. There was something going on, I remember, and we were going to get the cast. Well, the cast came through and kind of walked through the Ham and Yam during one year. Just
When
kind of
we-
The cast for what?
When we did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, they came out in costume and walked around.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Ham and
yeah.
Yam.
And so anyway, so it's just kind of trying to tie the theaters and the activities, and obviously the amphitheater downstairs, or down by the river.
Just right next door. You can
Yeah,
walk there.
and so we've got a tremendous amount of assets here in Smithfield, and I had, if you can't have fun doing what you're doing, you don't need to be in it. And during the time that I was the director, I mean, we really took the Ham Yam Festival to a different level in the sense of the musical acts that we had come through, where it was Molly Hatchet, we had Night Ranger, we had Eddie Money, we had numerous country acts come through, and you know, it was pretty impressive to, you know, I just remember the greatest feeling in the world was when Eddie Money, because that was kind of the first big name, everybody knew who he was and knew the music, and he was worried to death that nobody would show up because he was kind of one of those valley times in his career that he was, you know, he hadn't started his show or all that other stuff.
So you're telling me you had to wrangle Eddie Money?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Chris had asked if he could use this area for the meet and greet to do pictures, and for the talent to have a space to relax and kind of stretch their legs if they needed it, because you know they usually either had a hotel room or a bus or something they could use.
And they would always park right out the front door,
Right,
so
and
they
they
would
park right
pull
out
in, and the tour bus would be right there.
And usually they got fed, and so this was just a space for them to chill out. And so Chris had security, but somebody from the theater had to be here to open the door and kind of keep an eye on things. And so it was the only show I know of that Sammy Smith volunteered to be here.
What you need me to do? I'll be here.
And what was funny was Eddie Money
Mr. Money, pleased to meet you.
Eddie Money said, well, what if I came out the basement door and walked through the crowd to get to the stage? And that's what he did. And so Sammy went down there and sat there at the
basement door.
Yeah, the basement door down there where the ramp is, and watched the show from there, because we weren't sure if he was going to come back that way.
Right.
So somebody had to stand there and watch the door and make sure, you know, keep it open for him. But then he ended up walking up the hill and signing autographs or something. But yeah, Sammy was super excited.
But that whole hill was packed.
It was packed.
And I mean, you could not have squeezed any more people on that hill. And I was behind stage.
Especially not now.
And he comes out and starts out with 2 tickets to paradise. And the whole place just erupts. I mean, it's...
You see, I was sitting here trying to think of an Eddie Money song because I really didn't know any. I'm glad you said that.
He comes out and starts out with that one. And when I say it sounded like a concert,
oh, yeah.
I mean, it really did sound like a concert, because everybody was just, I mean, it was...
It was very impressive. And that's pretty much what kicked Ham and Yam concerts into high gear there for a while.
Right, yeah. So every year we had to up it or do something, and so, but anyway, I did that for 14, 15 years and thoroughly enjoyed it. But during that time,
except jumping in the river.
Promotions, you always have to do crazy things. First of all, for anybody that's been to the Ham and Yam, it always rains on Ham and Yam. I don't care if it never does, but it always has rained on Ham and Yam. And so, you know, I would do crazy stuff just to draw attention to it and just kind of embrace the Debbie Downer, womp, womp, it's always going to rain. You know, I had this huge 12-foot rain gauge, the official Ham and Yam rain gauge, where I had a pool that would pump water up the rain gauge and would come out and spill over the rain. I mean, you know, had it set up in the middle of it. And then, of course, I had I made a bet that if it didn't rain anytime during the Ham and Yam, I would jump in the river. Well, people actually thought I was going to jump off the bridge. I said, there's a big difference in jumping in the river.
Not when it's only 4 or 5 feet deep now.
So, but anyway, there was one year, and there was the whole Sunday, because it was a Saturday and Sunday event. I mean, I could not walk through the festival like, we're going to be down there watching you jump in the river, Chris. I mean, everybody.
You should have sold tickets.
People were super excited. It's like, oh man, we're going to get to see
there was probably 1,000 people on the banks of the river watching me jump in. It's Carter Rabel's got this. He's no longer with us, but there's photographs of. So anyway, so I went out.
Come join me in the healing waters of the Neuse.
Well, let me tell you something. I would not recommend it because I think I got a couple of rashes after that.
I was wondering to say, is that how you got the gills on your neck
Exactly.
from the radiation in the Neuse River?
Yeah, that glow. It's not my personality. But I jumped in the. I mean, they had 3 or 4 boats in there in case something happened. But I just got on the bow of the boat and I think I did a cannonball or something like that. But I jumped in and then I crawled up on the bank. And as I was halfway up, I'll never forget, there was a guy named David Young who owned a concession trailer. He says, "Chris, there's a water moccasin about 3 feet to your left." And I just stopped, and sure enough, I hate to say about eye level, because the bank just goes straight up. I mean, he was just sitting there. I'm like, Lord, have mercy. I said, what is to my right? So I finally got up the banks. But anyway, I say all that just to say that you got to have fun in whatever you do. And I thoroughly miss. I tell everyone that Main Street and small business is in my DNA. It will always be there. But 7.5, 8 years ago, I was approached by the county to run their economic development office, and I've been doing that, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that and that transition. But I can tell you, everything that I do in my job today, and the things that I feel like I'm successful doing with the county, I can tell you it all falls back to what I did with downtown Smithfield and the Main Street program and all the crazy promotional type stuff that, I mean, people would come up with ideas and I'd say, well, that sounds, let's try it. You know, it's kind of that no fear to fail type mentality. And so do we need to stop for that?
No, listen,
Okay.
folks. There's going to be motorcycles in the background this episode. We're recording on a Friday night. We're doing our best.
Yeah, but talking about Ham Yam and motorcycles and stuff. I mean, when we had Molly Hatchet, obviously it was a very biker crowd. But the Little Brown Jug absolutely thoroughly enjoyed all those Friday and Saturday night concerts. I mean, it was the bands. Actually, some of the bands would leave here and go over to the Jug. And as well as the cast, whenever we did.
I was going to say, as well as the cast and audience members, a lot of times for sure.
Oh hell, I've had read-throughs at the Little Brown Jug before.
Yeah, we have done that. We've done read-throughs at the Little Brown Jug, and I highly recommend it if you come to visit us. Just make sure you're back from intermission on time, unlike some folks.
Yes. You have 15 minutes to go chug a beer.
That's right.
But after that, you have to come back.
Sean jokes about we need to set up a light so like when we flash them on the porch, it flashes over at the Jug, so his crowd can remember to get back across the street.
Shoot like a flare up. Yeah.
Flashes the bar light so everybody knows it's time to go. But yeah, so no, Chris, it was always fun when Chris was doing, I mean, and Sarah's doing a great job too, but Chris was always a lot of fun with downtown Smithfield development. And then he's gone on to do it for the rest of the county now. So he doesn't get to jump in the river for that.
I can't think of what I need to do, but promotions is, when you're a small theater, you've got to do things that brings attention and keeps people engaged. And it's the same thing. So, it's, I think we've got a very, very special place here and special people. And it adds a little spice. I tell you, probably one of the things that we did with the theater, and the theater, when I was with Smithfield, I could always call on Mita particularly, or anybody with the volunteer staff, if you want to call it that, and say, I've got an idea. So, we had movie showings here. We had the Ava Gardner movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Ava Gardner Festival.
Well, it was the Ava Gardner Independent
Film Festival. That's right. And
we did that a couple of years.
Kirk Adam, who was kind of running the local art gallery at the time that we had, came up with this independent film festival, and we had this facility that would show some stuff. We had obviously the Howl. We had there was a couple of storefronts that were vacant at the time, and we were able to use them. So it was kind of a unique little thing, and we had film being sent in from all over the world, independent filmmakers that would, whether it was 3-minute short films or actually full-blown,
Feature-length
feature-length films.
Yeah.
And
some of them were really, really good, and some of them were very interesting, and some of them were just a little
out there.
But I do have to say that the first time I ever heard of, I'm gonna hate that I can't. Is it Michael Wiley? He's doing a show at Raleigh Little Theater. He's the African American gentleman who does Blood Done Sign My Name or something like that. I can't remember, but they're doing. Raleigh Little Theater's doing it right now. It's not that, but it's something along with his stuff. But they did a film, and it was called Darhi. And it's gone by a different name, but I think they've gone back to that title to it. And he does it as a one-person show, too, a stage production. But they did a film, and he played all the parts, but it's about the lynching of Emmett Till.
Yeah.
And that story. And I was amazed by that movie. And it's like, that's the one that sticks in my head of the reason why you do things like that is because you find that wonderful gem amongst everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, I tell people about that all the time. It's like, if you don't get to see it in person, there is a film that you can get. I said, it's wonderful. It's
Right.
a wonderful story. I mean, it's not a wonderful story, but
No, yeah, right.
It's wonderfully done. Yeah.
Right. Well, and
wonderfully
it's we were doing some interesting stuff that was kind of cutting edge that you would normally see in some large urban areas, and we were doing it right here in Smithfield. I know that Colin with the newspaper, and he and his wife, they had just gotten married. They volunteered a lot. Meet, I know, volunteered a lot. And
Stephen and I volunteered almost every year.
Yeah.
At least.
And Kirk was out there. He would do these midnight walks to Ava's grave and stuff like that.
Those were my favorite. Oh my God, I love Ava Gardner's midnight
Stroll.
Tell me about this, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you got to understand Kirk. Kirk's he added so much personality, if you want to say that, to Smithfield at the time. But let me just say this. On the last night, there was always the Ava Gardner graveside stroll or something like that.
Yeah, we took a tour. He would guide a tour, and I only did it. I think we only did it 2 years, but the first year was the best. And Stephen and I loved every minute of it. But he would take everybody around town and visit all of locations in Smithfield, and it would be in relation to Ava Gardner, kind of like a ghost walk.
In case you don't know, Ava Gardner was born down the road.
Yeah, right.
Right,
And her
right
brother
outside of
actually
town.
owned the where the jug is now. I mean, he ran the gas station, so he tied that in.
A
and
service station, yeah. But we would walk. We'd do a tour of the town, and then it would end all the way out at, is it Sunset or
Sunset,
something like that. The cemetery outside of town, just outside of town, and that's where Ava Gardner is buried. And so we would walk all the way out there to her graveside, and that was where the tour ended. But we laughed so hard because Kirk would go, and here is so-and-so, this is the Howell Theater where Ava Gardner might have seen a movie.
Wow.
But it was like, and Steve and I are trying really hard not to laugh. The first
And
year
here's
we
a
did
McDonald's. If she were alive in 1983, she probably would have gotten a burger from there.
But we tried so hard not to laugh because the people on the tour with us were so earnest. They were like, we ended up at the graveside, and they wanted to light a candle and leave a flower, and I think a cigarette and a shot of booze. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And of course, something happened, and this bird started singing, and the woman that was with us goes, oh, Ava's trying to speak to us. And Stephen and I are in the back going, and it was just the most fun of anything I've ever done.
I
And
really
then the
don't
next
think
year
that's
we
Ava.
tried to recreate it, and it wasn't as good, but we loved every minute of it. We took a picture on the hotel stairs or whatever. It was like,
I've got photographs of the people, everybody at the grave site, and they're all just standing there at the grave. But you got to understand, we tied in the film festival with the museum's, I don't say real festival, but they had kind of a weekend. And so there was a lot of people that were coming in. There was a lady that used to come in from New York that just absolutely loved Ava and took the train down every year.
Yeah.
And then would participate in these film festivals.
because the Ava Gardner Museum would do a whole weekend, and they would show her films, and then they would they would have buses go out into the teacherage and where she grew up and all of that down in Broadslab.
Yeah.
And so it would take people on that sort of tour. And then we were just the independent film festival, but they used Ava Gardner's name to kind of link it together. It had really nothing to do with Ava Gardner, but
Yeah. Well, I would say the blue hairs would participate in the Independent Film Festival. When I say blue, I'm talking about dyed blue. It would be
Right.
pink and green and everything else.
So yeah, it was a much younger, more punkish crowd that was in the independent film festival.
But Kirk really did a good job because he would do film classes. He would bring in people from Raleigh that were kind of, so if you were interested in getting into the film industry, of learning in it and the ins and outs of that, he would bring in people that were kind of well versed. I mean, you know, obviously they had some history and some knowledge about the industry, and so it was done pretty well. Of course, I know, you know, we just didn't have the bigger crowds that we thought we would have, but we'd
Right.
have 200 or 300 people.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, and
I've forgotten all about this.
No, I think part of it was just we were competing with a lot of other film festivals, so it got to where it was hard to get people to come and
Right,
do it.
yeah.
So it sort of kind of petered out a little bit, and I guess Kirk moved away, and you know.
Yeah.
But it was a good time while it lasted.
I think we did about 6 or 7 of them, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think, I
yeah.
think my shirt says 6. I
6,
think the
yeah.
last shirt I have was a 6.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, we got to bring that back sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
It was
possible.
fun.
Okay. Well, we're going to put a pin in it right there. I know you got probably more stories there, Chris, but we've been going about an hour here. And thank you for being such first of all, an easy guest to interview. Very nice man. I appreciate you coming on, and I find this whole conversation fascinating, especially about the Ava Gardner stuff and how you got started at the theater. And we want to thank you for coming by.
Well, I appreciate it, and again, it's indeed an honor. I'm looking forward to, actually, I told my wife before COVID hit, because I've got 2 kids, they're now in college, and I said, you know, one of the promises that I'm going to make to myself is to get back involved in doing a show. I got to figure out which one Ruth is going to do, and if it's a musical, no. But you know, it's something that, even though I'm not active as a lot of people that's involved in it, it's still very dear to my heart. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'm sure we can find something for you. I've heard talk of certain musicals maybe being talked about for the 50th anniversary, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
If we ever get there.
I know, if we ever get there. All right. I'm going to start the credits right there. Thank you, Chris, for coming in, and thank you, Mita, for jumping in. I basically had to sit back and listen on this one, and you know, that's fine with me. But credits for the show is host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. The producer and editor is Mita Toole. The music is by Cody Walker. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to @CodyWalkerMusic. And we'll have more information to you as we progress along this crazy journey of ours into 2021. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.